Development of the external genital organs. Now, development of the external genitalia. First, in different stages. External genitalia develops during 3 to 6 weeks of the gestations. The cloaca membrane is surrounded by a bilateral mesodermal cloaca fold. These folds fused anteriorly, forming the genital tubercle. Caudally, these folds are subdivided into parts. The urethral fold anteriorly that surrounded a urogenital groove. Second, the anal fold posteriorly. Okay? At the same time, the urethral fold becomes surrounded by the bilateral genital swelling that are the primordial of the scrotum of the male and the labia major of the female. Now, the differentiated external genitalia. First, of the male, the genitalia tubercle you will elongate it, forming الفلس. الفلس is the primordial of the penis and glans penis. The urethral fold elongated, forming the urogenital groove or the urethral grooves that lies on the caudal side of the الفلس. These grooves, urethral grooves, is lined by the endodermal of the urethral plate. The urethral fold will be closed to form a penile urethral at the end of the third. This part of the urethra never reached to the tip of the الفلس. Therefore, the ectoderm at the tip of the phallus invaginated to form a cord tissue between الفلس and penile urethra. Canalized of this cord will form the external urethral mucus. All these development changing occur by the effect of the androgen testosterone hormones secreted by the testes. Now, the clinical correlates. First, the hypospadias occur by a failure of the closure of the urethral fold, also is called scrotal fold. It causes abnormal urethral opening at the inferior aspect of the penis. Massive failure will result in the separations of the scrotal swelling. They may simulate the labia majora. Second, epispadias occur if the genital tubercle is formed at the caudal end of the cloaca membrane, normal in the cranial positions. It associated with the abnormal urethral opening at the dorsum of the penis. Extrophy of the bladder, failure of the mesoderm, migrations at the primitive streak toward the cloaca membrane. It may be associated with epispadias. 4. Micro penis. 5. Peft penis or double penis. Now the external genital of the female. The short genital tubercle will forming the clitoris. The infused urethral fold forming labia minora. Urogenital groove form the vestibule of the vagina. Ultrasonic examinations of the fetus during the 3rd and 4th month may lead to wrong diagnosis of the male sex, because in this stage the female has a larger genital tubercle. Now the clinical correlate defect in the schedule differentiated of the external genital could be seen in the first Klinefelter syndrome with the Kerr type 4T7 XXY or other triple XY is the most common major abnormalities of the schedule differentiated occurring with the frequency of the 1 per 500 mLs. Second, gonadodysgenesis. These abnormalities result from point mutations or deletions of the sex determining regions on Y genes. A third, pseudo-hermaphroditism occurring in the males or in the females. 4. Testicular feminizations occurring due to the insensitivity to androgen. Now, descending of the testes. At the end of the 2nd month, the urogenital mesentery attached to the testes and mesonephros to the posterior abdominal wall. And the urogenital mesentery, the caudal part of this mesentery is called the caudal genital ligament. You can see this is the caudal genital ligament. This is the caudal part of the mesentery. Caudal part of the mesentery is called the caudal genital ligament. And when degenerations of the mesonephros, the attachment is severe as mesentery for the gonad, and also extending from the caudal pole of the testis is a mesenchymal condensations rich in extracellular matrix. This is called the coppernaculum. Okay, this is the coppernaculum testis in mesenchymal condensations rich in the extracellular matrix. Okay, here and here. Now the coppernaculum is extended between the caudal pole of the, you can see here, extended between the caudal poles of the testes to the scrotal swelling. You can see this is the scrotal swelling outside the abdominal cavity. Here you can see the copper naculum extended between to the caudal poles of the testes to the scrotal swelling outside the abdominal cavity. And these copper naculum grow outside the abdominal, and these pulling, you can see pulling the testes down. This pulling is assisted by the increase intra-abdominal pressures occur by the growth of the abdominal viscera. You can see. Later on, the extra abdominal part of the copper naculum rigorous, and these completing the passages of the testes throughout the canals down toward the scrotum. You can see. The extra abdominal part of the copper naculum rigorous, and those completed the passage of the testes throughout the canal down toward the scrotum. Independently from descending of the testes, the peritoneal of the abdominal cavity form and evagination of each side of the midline into the ventral abdominal wall. And the peritoneal evaginations surrounded the descending testes and forming the process vaginalis and the tonica vaginalis. اوكي، اذا هذه البريتونيال الايفاجينيشن راح تكون هي surrounding the descending testes and forming the process vaginalis and the tonica vaginalis. Also the descending testes covered by the internal spermatic fascia, the cremasteric fascia, and the external spermatic fascia. These three fascial layers are derived from the muscular or muscles of the interiorly abdominal wall. And the above development changing occur under the effect of the androgen hormones. Okay, peritoneal and surrounded to the descending testes وforming to the process vaginalis and tonica vaginalis. Also, these descending testes covered by the internal spermatic fascia, the creamastric fascia, and the external spermatic fascia. These fascia, three fascial layers, تكون derived من muscles of the anteriorly abdominal wall. And these development changes occurs under the effect of the androgen hormones. Now the descending of the ovary. Descending of the ovary occur in the less degree than the descending of the testes, and the ovary reach just below the pelvic brain. The cranial part of the urogenital mesentery forming the genital ligament, genital ligament that develop to forming the suspensory ligament of the ovary. You can see this is the cranial part of the urogenital mesentery forming the suspensory ligament of the ovary, while the caudally part of the mesentery form the caudally genital ligament that form the ligament of the ovary. You can see this is the ligament of the ovary and rounded ligament of the uterus. The caudally part of the mesentery forming the caudally genital ligament. The caudally genital ligament forming the ligament of the ovary and a rounded ligament of the uterus, while the cranial part of the urogenital mesentery forming the genital ligament that develop to forming the suspensory ligament of the ovary. Thanks.